Welcome back. This is going to be my preview and prediction for the Georgia-Auburn game this Saturday, September 30th, 3:30. I believe it is a CBS game, the 3:30 CBS game for this weekend. And this is going to be Georgia's first road game of the season, first test in a hostile environment on the road for that Georgia offense and for Carson Beck. I'm really excited to see what that offense can do, what Carson Beck can do when in a hostile environment on the road, playing in the SEC. It's never easy to go on the road in the SEC. I mean, unless it's like Vanderbilt, but that the Auburn fans are crazy. They love that team. That's going to be a hostile environment. It's going to be loud. I think they're going to be ready to rock and roll. I'm just going to come out and say it. I think Georgia wins this game. My prediction for this game is I think Georgia wins this game. I think that the point spread right now is about 14 and a half point favorite for Georgia. I do think Georgia wins this game. And I'm going to get into the reasons why I think they win this game. I've got a bunch of notes here going through it. And the one thing is I don't think Auburn's offense is going to be able to move the ball on Georgia's defense. I just don't see it happening. I think Auburn has a really good defense, and I think that they can, make Georgia's offense earn every yard, but I do not see Auburn's offense being able to keep up with Georgia, especially Georgia's defense. And I just wanted to go through some stats and talk about this because this is a little bit eye-opening when I actually sat down and went through it. I'll go through their games previous. Georgia won 48-7 UT Martin, 45-3 Ball State. They beat South Carolina 24-14, and they beat UAB last weekend 49-21. Auburn 59-14 win over UMass, a 14-10 win over Cali. Did not expect them to win that game, but they did. 45-13 win against Samford, and then they lost to Texas A&M 10-27. 27-10 they lost to Texas A&M. So going through some of these stats, points per game for Auburn on average, 32 for Auburn, 41.5 for Georgia. Touchdowns total for Auburn, 17, 22 for Georgia. And now here is the numbers that I wanted to get into that was very surprising to me when I looked at this. Actually, not that surprising. Auburn's not a good football team on offense. It's first year under Hugh Freeze. Total yards for Auburn is 1,489. 1,489 total yards for Auburn through 4 games. For Georgia, just under 2,000, 1,986 yards. So you're looking at a 500-yard difference in total yards. Rushing, now Auburn does beat out Georgia in this category with about 888 total yards of rushing this season. Georgia only 679, that was actually shocking to me. Georgia is usually considered a run-heavy team, run it down your throat kind of team. But here's where I was also surprised. Passing yards, Auburn is only at 693. That's really bad. Georgia's at 1,350. They have almost double what Auburn has in the passing yards. And actually might be double. Average passing yards per game, 686 for Auburn. And Georgia is 9.12 for Georgia passing attempts. Auburn barely beats out average run per game at 4.8. Georgia's sitting at 4.6. Penalties, too many penalties for Auburn. Auburn has 26 penalties for the 4 game for 205 yards. Georgia's sitting at 19 for 167. Third down conversion rate for Georgia, they are at 27 of 51 for 52.94%. So they're over half on their third down conversions. This is a horrible statistic for that Auburn offense right here. And they didn't give me the amount of third down tries that they had, but they're only at 39%. 39% on third down conversion rate. That's bad. That's really bad. And that's going against teams like UMass, Cali, Samford, and Texas A&M. And I understand Texas A&M is good. I do think Texas A&M is good, even with all the Jimbo Fisher crap. But 39% third down conversion rate. You've got 26 penalties. And here's another thing. Here is another thing that is wild. And reason why if I was an Auburn fan, I would be highly concerned about this game. On total yards on offense, Georgia is 13 in the country. 13 in the country. Auburn is 83rd. 83rd in the country on total yards gained on offense. You can go to ESPN and look at the current stats. That's below teams such as Rice, UAB, who Georgia just played, New Mexico State University, Georgia State, Toledo, Coastal Carolina is ahead of them, Boise, Air Force. How does Air Force have more yards on offense than you do? They're also below teams like Vandy and Miami of Ohio. Miami of Ohio. Those are just a few teams that this Auburn offense is below. I don't think Auburn's offense is going to stand a chance in this game against that Georgia defense. Understand Georgia's defense gave up 21 points to UAB last game. I'm not going to make any excuses for giving up 21 points to UAB. One was late in the game. Garbage time still counts. They're not going to take it away, but it was a garbage time touchdown. One was off a fumble on a punt return that gave UAB short field. If Georgia can clean up the turnovers and clean up penalties, which they're not getting many penalties, but if Georgia can come out of this game with no turnovers, that's going to spell disaster for Auburn. That offense is abysmal. That offense, so far through 4 games, what we have seen has looked horrible. And I thought Georgia was struggling on offense. I mean, that's bad. That's really bad. The lack of consistency and everything surrounding that Auburn offense, I think, is going to make for an ugly game for Auburn. I think it has a chance to get ugly and get ugly fast. If Georgia comes out in the start connecting and firing on all cylinders, and Carson Beck is able to quiet that crowd and take control and command of that offense, I think this game could get very ugly for Auburn very fast. Georgia did start to look better on offense against UAB. I didn't like how we started. I know that we came out and we scored on our first drive, but our next 2 drives we had a turnover on downs and then we punted. But then we went 7 for 7 touchdowns. Carson Beck looked phenomenal. He looked good. He looked like he had a lot more confidence in his decision-making. He looked like he was able to control and command that offense a lot more. He looked relaxed. He looked good. Now, I get that was against UAB. I understand that. And I understand that Auburn's defense is a huge step up in competition than what UAB had to offer. But if Georgia gets going on offense, I don't think Auburn can keep up. Even at their A game on offense, I don't think Auburn's offense can keep up with Georgia if they get going. Now, I'm not saying that Auburn has zero chance to win. Obviously, anyone can win any game. USF almost beat Alabama a couple weeks ago. So anyone can win any game. And Georgia still has to show up and play. One thing I do like for Auburn is that it is in Auburn. That is a huge plus for them. They do get that home crowd. And I do think Auburn's defense is pretty good. They've been pretty stingy this year. They've looked deep. They've looked good. I think the only way that Auburn has a true shot at winning this game is they have to get pressure on Carson Beck. They have to force turnovers. They have to come away in this game winning the turnover margin. They have to. Get a couple of interceptions, force fumbles, put pressure on Carson Beck. You don't even have to sack Carson Beck. You just have to pressure him. We've seen that when Carson Beck, because he is still so new, I mean, he's been in fucking college this is his 4th year at Georgia, because of his playing time experience at this level is still so, he's got such little experience. When he is rushed, when he is hurried, he does make bad decisions on where he throws the ball. He tends to underthrow the ball a lot, which can lead, or overthrow the ball a lot as well, which obviously can lead to interceptions, turnovers. That's Auburn's key to this game, is I am Curious to see how that defensive line for Auburn does against the Georgia's offensive line. I think that is the key to this thing. I think that if Georgia's offensive line can create protection for Carson Beck, time and protection for Carson Beck to throw, and they can create some running lanes for our running backs, I think it's going to get very bad. Now, if Auburn's defense can come out and shut down the run game, kind of make Georgia one-dimensional, and put Carson Beck on his heels, constantly get him moving, make him feel pressured, make him second guess, I think that Auburn stands a good chance at winning this game. I think for Auburn's sake, they need to keep it a low-scoring game. I don't think they can get in a shootout with Georgia. I just don't think that offense is good enough to keep up. If Georgia puts up 35-plus points, I don't see it for Auburn. I think Auburn's key to win this game is keeping it a low-scoring game, to slug it out, to be greedy and stingy on defense and make Georgia earn every yard. But even with that being said, I think Georgia's defense is better than Auburn's defense, and I think even in a low-scoring game, Georgia will get the necessary stop. What Auburn wants to do is put the game in the legs of Georgia's kicker, because our kicker fucking sucks. He is abysmal. That's what Auburn wants to do, is like go up by a point or two late in the game, fourth quarter, and get a stop on Georgia and say, all right, now you got to kick the ball, kick a field goal to win. If Auburn does that, they've won the game. I'm saying right now, if Auburn does that, they have won this game, because our kicker sucks. That's what Auburn needs to do. Yeah, I don't think Auburn is going to be able to move the ball offensively from those numbers that I've seen, unless something completely changes during the week. I don't see Auburn being able to move the ball. And this is going against a team on Georgia that has a lot of injuries. And I'm not using that as an excuse, but Georgia's only down to 2 scholarship running backs. Two scholarship running backs. Our top receiver is out in Ladd McConkey. He may play, he may not play. We don't know. If he does play and he's 100% able, like, game over. I mean, there's another one of my dogs right there. So even with all the injuries Georgia has on offense, I still think their offense is clearly better than what anything Auburn has to offer. And I'm not trying to be a dick. I love to trash talk, and that's just me being honest. I mean, Auburn fans, you should be able to look at your offense and see that it's not good this year. It's going to take a while to get where you want, and hopefully Hugh Freeze can get y'all there, because I love this rivalry. I grew up with this being my favorite rivalry for Georgia, besides the Georgia-Florida. Now that I've moved to Florida, the Georgia-Florida has kind of overtaken that. But I used to live in Alabama as a kid, and my favorite time of the year was Georgia versus Auburn, because we both could connect that we both hate Alabama. But that was a fun weekend for me growing up as a kid when I lived in Alabama, was the Georgia-Auburn game. And to see it fall to what it has because of where Auburn's been at kind of sucks. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love beating Auburn. I beat Auburn every year. But it is a lot better when the rivalry is close and you have really good games. And I just don't think that this is a year that it's going to be a really good game and that it's going to be really close. I think Georgia comes out. Like I said earlier, it's a 14.5 point favorite. I'm picking and I'm putting money down that Georgia wins and covers. I think they win big. I think Georgia comes out fast, connecting on all cylinders. I think that offense gets in a groove. I think they quiet the crowd down early. I think Auburn may hang around for the first quarter. But I think once that Georgia offense gets going, they don't slow down. They don't stop. Like I said before, Georgia's offense, what it seems to be, is just that old car that's got a lot of power under the hood that just takes a little bit. You just got to get it up into high gear. It doesn't have fast acceleration, but once you kick it into high gear, that motherfucker's gone, and it ain't stopping. That's kind of what Georgia's offense is. And I think once Georgia gets there, and I think they get there pretty early in the game, I think they don't look back, and I think they get going. And I think it takes the crowd out of it, and I think Georgia coasts to a victory. I'm honestly predicting 38-10. And I'm hesitant even giving Auburn 10 points. I really am. I think, like I said, I think they keep it close in the first quarter. They managed to get a field goal, maybe a touchdown. But I think in the second quarter and going away in the second half, I think Georgia just kind of takes over. I think that offensive line starts to wear out that defensive line, and I think Georgia's defensive line crushes Auburn and doesn't allow them much. I'm not even convinced that Auburn would score points in this game, but I am going to give them some. With the way that Georgia has been giving up silly touchdowns, I think I'm giving Auburn a touchdown for one of those, and I'm also giving them 3 points for just it being at home. That is something when you do have a home game. But I'm going to say 38-10 Georgia. I think Georgia wins. I think they win big. I think they look good. I think it's their first game where they look complete from top to bottom. And I think they roll. I think they cover. So that's going to be my preview and prediction for the Georgia-Auburn game this Saturday. Fuck you, Auburn. Other than that, over and out.